Hi friends, my name is Nika and I've been working in the modeling industry for over 10 years. In my previous video I talk about modeling work in general and only occasionally touch on my personal experience. But in this video I want to focus solely on myself and share my journey of becoming a model right from the start. This video will be helpful for you if you are looking to start a career in the fashion industry, if you are paving the way for your child, or if you are just a curious and open-minded person interested in everything. Feel free to give a welcome and like right now. It all started when I saw a fashion show, an old vintage TV. According to my mom, I was captivated by the beautiful dresses and the long-legged models who skillfully and elegantly walked down the runway in towering high heels. I was around 3 years old then, but I was a very serious child, so I immediately told her about my intention to become a model. I even started showcasing a model's strut in my mom's shoes on an imaginary runway. In general, my parents are of average height, so there was no one tall in my family. My mom later shared a story. Once, when I was still a baby, a friend of hers approaching us on the street noticed the unusually large size of my foot for a child and said that I would definitely grow tall. Despite my mom not taking it seriously, this amusing prediction turns out to be true, and over time I did start to grow taller. I entered the first grade already quite tall, and in my teenage years I was, as a model, are expected to be tall and slender. Time went on, but the idea of becoming a model someday never left me. Even thought there weren't any real prospects, especially considering that I was growing up in a modest family in a small coastal town, far away from any major urban areas. In my town, there was one modeling agency, a model school where one family made it their family business, taught young girls aspiring to have a modeling career how to walk and pose. Thanks to their local connections, they organized shows with their model students at citywide events. This gave the girls hope that this experience should somehow shape their future. The founders of this modeling school noticed me immediately because the town was small and I stood out being tall. It was hard not to notice me. They began inviting me to their school for what they called art plasticity classes, implying that they would help me break into the modeling industry and send me to work abroad. The school was quite expensive by those standards, and my family couldn't afford such a luxury. Plus, my mom was always worried about me, especially when I talked about going abroad on a modeling contract. Naturally, she didn't let me go anywhere until I reached adulthood, much to my disappointment. I want to point out that despite never having seen luxury except on television, I was quite ambitious. I always dreamed of traveling, having a big white car and living in the capital city. From my teenage years onwards, there wasn't a single summer when I didn't have a part-time job. The pocket money my mom gave me was never enough, and I wasn't afraid to work and find small gigs. I usually worked at a full capacity during the summer, especially during the swimming season. Once, luck was on my side when I was invited by the art plasticity manager to work as a flower seller. My task was to sell roses and a glamorous cabaret-style dress in the evening by the waterfront. By the way, I must give myself credit. I was a decent salesperson, and besides selling roses, I also successfully sold my phone number, and then I didn't answer any calls. I believe the job had a significant impact on me at the time. I realized I was capable, that I know how to earn money, and importantly, I love people. Moreover, I confirmed my attractiveness and charisma, which I used to the fullest. It was the summer before my 11th grade. I considered myself mature and independent, and I pretty much looked the part. Certain girls tend to mature earlier in appearance. My little town came to life only in the summer during the season, and that's when the most significant events happened. While selling my roses, I met a boy from Moscow and I fell in love with him. Well, he fell for me too, of course. Throughout the entire year, we exchanged letters, and when the decisive moment came, when I had to choose a college and the city for my studies, he came over. Without any room for objections, he took me with him to Moscow. My mom was shocked, and I was in love, ready to agree to anything. I didn't manage to get into Moscow University that year, and in order to survive in the vast, expensive city, I had to look for a job. Without much hesitation, I gathered 5 of my beach photos, took snapshots and sent them to various modeling agencies in Moscow. I was what you'd call a model through and through, tall and thin. I was convinced they would accept me into an agency. I think back then I was even more self-assured than I'm now, after all these years in the industry. Several modeling agencies invited me for castings. I visited all of them, although, as I now understand, 7 out of 10 were nothing more than fronts for something else in essence brothel. They labeled themselves as a modeling agency, thus luring young, unexpected, charming provincials, which is what I was at the time. But fear, natural cunning, and the intellectual strength of my chosen one shielded me from objectively perilous situation for a young woman. Once I even escaped from some underground studio in a very strange hotel, chased by an arranged pimp who yelled after me that she had already sold me and I was losing my chance to earn. Fortunately, my friend, sensing something was amiss, came to pick me up from there in advance. Additionally, my phone was constantly ringing with the calls from numerous modeling schools that were recruiting ambitious and unexpected girls without portfolios, inviting them to trial classes. I think if I had the money, I would have gladly learned the modeling craft because at that point I couldn't pose or walk on runway. In my upcoming videos, I'll share my thoughts on modeling schools and describe all the pros and cons. This is one of the most common questions my acquaintances ask me. In general, due to lack of experience, money and understanding, I got upset and wrote to some modeling agency that was looking for a girl for a secretary position. After a simple interview, they hired me. I answered calls for 3 months. During that time, I got to know the ins and outs of this industry, befriended models, put towards my candidacy for agency castings, and even took on a couple of jobs myself. My first modeling job was at a booth at an exhibition. I worked there as a hostess for 5 days and earned a whopping $1,000. As a secretary, I had a monthly salary of $1,000. That was in 2012, by the way. At the time, it was an incredible amount of money for me, and I immediately realized that I wanted to work as a model exclusively, or at least as a hostess, but definitely not as a secretary, and I happily left that position. During this time, I found gigs for myself for low pay and gladly attended runway shows for unknown, aspiring designers for free, just to gain experience. There used to be a website called Fashion Bank. Their models, or those who called themselves that, sought low-paying jobs. I took all my first poorly paid job from there. By that point, I had figured out the names of reputable modeling agencies and started sending them my applications. My first agency was iModel. I started working with them and continue to do so to this day. Now it's called something else. I went to them on a freezing cold day in December, and I even remember that I was wearing some completely mismatched but warm sweater. One of the managers, I don't remember her name, she left soon after, devalued me as if I were completely out of place. She told me I needed to lose weight drastically, that I had bad skin, teeth and hairs, and that she wasn't sure they needed a model like me. But all of the other managers treat me quite kindly. They welcomed me into their team as if I were family. Girls, I know you are watching me. I remember all of you and love you. Despite the negative assessment from one agent, that same evening I worked at an event for another one. I successfully began to pass castings, and I was almost immediately invited to photo shoot runway shows on events as a hostess. For the first time through the iModel agency, I went abroad where I appeared in a music video. Not only once, but also from them I participated in significant projects in Moscow and another city and countries. Now only a couple of people remain from that team, but we still have a warm relation. Do you want to know how I walk on the runway and pose without any skills? I don't know. It's still a blue puzzle for me. I simply pretended that I knew everything, and I borrowed some techniques from my more experienced colleagues. With time, I developed my own posing methods, and after rehearsing in front of the mirror, I went to the shoots. Half a year flew by quickly with a stream of events, and I needed to decide on my university enrollment. I prepared for national exams for months, somehow managed to get decent scores in the necessary subjects. And while shooting for a magazine on the Côte d'Azur, I found out that I got accepted into the PR and advertising program and Russian Presidential Academy. I don't know why I didn't choose the theater university, which was my dream before. Maybe I got influenced by the people who thought my dreams wasn't serious enough. Perhaps I was afraid of embarrassment as well. I wasn't confident in my acting skills at the time. Well, I should also mention that before enrolling in university, a tempting offer came into my life in the form of a major international agency. The director was so intrigued by my look that she was ready to sign an exclusive contract with me tomorrow. She was planning in various trips from Asia to the West. However, I chose education. Now I'm certain I missed my chance, but who knows how my fate would have turned out without a higher education, right? Nevertheless, I still managed to work on contracts in several countries. However, I never experienced that level of interest in my personality again. The topic of international modeling contracts is vast and intriguing, something that would be beneficial for moms of aspiring models and, of course, young models themselves. Then, for 4 years, I immersed myself in my studies. Occasionally takes a break from Chinese for a show or a catalog shoot just to have some money for living. Once during vacation, I even managed to fly to Istanbul for a contract. I can't say it was successful, but it was an experience. I must give credit to my academy. I adored it madly. My first love can't compare to the reverence I felt while looking at a young, handsome, incredible, smart economics lecturer. 4 years went by unnoticed, and after becoming more sensible, I even considered working in my field, an advertising agency or the marketing department of a major company. But it wasn't meant to be. After finishing my study, the modeling business pulled me back in, and this time even stronger. The prospects of high earning had a significant influence on me. Indeed, the number of good projects increased. I started seeing my photos on billboards, advertising panels, inside stores and TV commercials. I signed a 2 months advertising contract with a television company in South Africa and had there. Upon my return, I buy my dream car. Later, I drastically changed my image, which I discussed in one of the previous videos. From that point on, another successful period in modeling begins, gradually evolving into the present day. And half a year ago in Bangkok, sweating on stage among a crowd of beautiful girls and waiting for the host's speech to end, an idea comes to mind. I want to step out of the shadow of the brands I'm wearing and show my own face. Confirmation of my intention comes in the form of a serious fall down the streets a few months later, just half an hour before the Cartier show. Instead of being at the fashion show location, my husband takes me to the hospital. I take this fall as a sort of stop sign, and right then and there, with a heavy heart, I officially allow myself to finish this decade-long race. There have been many ups and downs in my life, even in the literal sense of the word, but stability has always been absent. Yes, my name is not alongside globally renowned models, and I haven't earned the kind of money that would allow me and my family to never work again. But I've done everything within my power without resorting to things that would compromise my self-respect. What I've seen and where I've been is entirely my accomplishment. I've turned into reality what I envisioned in my childhood dreams, taking slow and careful steps toward my aspirations. And now I want to share my experience with you, so that you or your children won't make the same mistakes on the path to your dreams. I would greatly appreciate your likes, comments and subscriptions to my channel.